We're back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Davidson County Sheriff Daron Hall's with us. We're going to get to your phone call, 737-7587. Just real quick, a point you made, and as you heard in the last segment, the Sheriff's Department here in Davidson County will be ready, if needed, to assist if anything gets out of hand in Rutherford County this weekend, or in Shelbyville, Bedford County, when they have those White Lives Matter protests. And hopefully things stay peaceful. But part of it's, what do you think when the media gets involved as a law enforcement official? I've heard, and I'm sensitive to our viewers, saying, well, if you just wouldn't cover them, you know, it wouldn't be such an issue. And I hear what they're saying, but on the other hand, I mean, we have no choice but to cover something if it turns violent, if they've cordoned off and shut down the stores in a whole town square on a Saturday. That's news. But I agree with everyone else. If it was just these protesters that showed up, no one else did, we all went around our businesses, I'd ignore it. I wouldn't report it, folks. I'm with you on that. How do you feel about responsible media coverage of these types of things?
Wow.
I mean, I don't know. You've got to think about it. It transcends other stuff you guys handle.
Yeah, I've seen it where I thought it was not healthy. I mean, the coverage, because I felt like, and I don't mean anything in particular, I watch it with an eye towards, I think, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to end and resolve the protest, or at least let it occur, or are we trying to
sensationalize and build up the violence? My main concern, like yours, seriously, as a journalist, it's not just reporting the news. I'm very concerned about public safety and our role in educating. And I think it's important, at least in the days before this protest, to report that it's going to occur in the sense that you need to know the square, a very popular, nice place in Murfreesboro, is going to more or less be cordoned off. And many of the establishments you may frequent on a weekend are going to be closed, possibly boarded up. And if you walk down there, you don't know what you're going to encounter. I think that's my responsibility to make sure our viewers are aware of that. Now, I'm not sitting here getting into the details about what this hate. I don't want to send a hate message out there. Right? Now, that's responsible. Public safety for me is crucial.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I do agree with you. I mean, it's clearly newsworthy by all accounts. I mean, I think that, and I don't mean anything particular. I just think there is a line out there that feels like I'm trying to pretend that I can be an objective viewer. I probably can't, but where when you're watching it, sometimes I feel like the sensationalism of the event brings people to watch it, brings people out to participate a little more than I mean, there's a lot of protests around here. People, I mean, I see this all the time, and we all do that. Maybe it's because there's so many protests now.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 years ago, if there had been a protest about the bridge they're going to build over here, it'd have been national news, probably. I'm exaggerating.
No, but there aren't as many there.
Yeah, today there's a protest almost every day, every week of something. And so I think maybe that's the other part of it. Now there's such a protest that I think some of the participants sometimes need to do something a little beyond what the last protest did. And it feels like, I don't know, but I think it's dangerous. I think you're right. There's a line that journalists, I think, need to play, and law enforcement obviously has a role. The community has to kind of you know, weigh that out, and it's I won't ever forget, and it's funny, you were a part of this, but one of the things that I find interesting about journalists covering protests, and I say protest, but when President Trump was here right around the corner, I mean, our office isn't 2 blocks away.
That's right.
Obviously, it changed where you're coming and going from. And to be honest with you, I live in this town. I was less than a block away from where all this is going on. I can't tell you right now, based on the way the coverage, and I read a lot and I heard a lot about it, of whether the municipal auditorium was overflowing with people. Because half the people were saying the lines are wrapped around the city, the other half was showing an empty seat. And my point is, both of those can't be right. So let's be honest, get in a hot air balloon and shoot the footage, let everybody figure it out. But it gets to fit a narrative of, and I'm not saying of the personal narrative, of the political narrative, it just feels a little bit, and so my point is, if that's how we handle a very controversial situation with the president, then I think it's also true that the way an event like Charlottesville, or let's say, God forbid, in Murfreesboro or Shelbyville, that you know, it's hard to go away feeling like that was the same event covered in different ways as to whether it was underperforming or overperforming or protest, or So I lose a little bit of consistency in believing how they're going to be covered. I don't know what's right. I don't know which one of those messages is good, but I think what ends up happening in a protest, say this weekend, my hope is that it's covered because it is newsworthy in the facts, and there are real messages that these folks and counter protesters want to get out. That's newsworthy. I just hope it doesn't turn into an enticement of other people that wouldn't have been involved because
go down there and get on TV or figures sparking violence because they know that. Yeah, I can tell you from our perspective, we will be observers, all right? And it's not something where we're going to want them to say, okay, there's the camera, let's start acting. We're not going to try to be, and I can't speak for other media establishments in this town, but we've done a lot of talking about how we're going to try to be as responsible as we can on this without maybe recognizing we're being used by them or thinking. You know, I've been in situations before, not necessarily rallies like this, where they're just kind of sitting around waiting, and when the camera shows up, then they bop up and start protesting. You know, I turn around and walk away because it's like, oh, well, you're just doing this for me. And I don't want to be part of the narrative. Now, if you're just doing this and we happen to be a fly on the wall, that's different. But yeah, that's the kind of thing we're going to be aware of here. We don't want our cameras to spark any kind of reaction that wasn't going to just happen organically on its own, and we don't want to be part of that. If we think it is, we're going to draw back. It's just not going to be the play it's going to be.
I think, and maybe this is just me, I think the other role that's critical here is that your camera and your coverage may be the only thing that certain people will ever know about it. And there's a message that protesters want to get out. You don't have to agree with the message, but their message gets out sometimes through that. And so the lens is important for them to see it. And if they're acting in a behavior that is, you know, counterproductive, then the public get to see. I think it's important because to not cover it is not fair to the person who's living 3 streets over, who may never get out of their house, but deserves to understand what the real issues are being. Because I mean, look, I'm fascinated and shocked with what people will protest in this country, but I learn what their passions are. I may not agree with them, and I learned that in some cases there's a heck of a lot more people who feel the way they do than I would have thought. Not just this. And
weekend. I want to know that.
I
want to know that. Yeah, I mean, the idea of just, you know, ignoring it and it'll go away, sadly, that's not the fact, and that's not the way to go. You don't ignore it and think white supremacists are going to go away. It's just not, unfortunately, the case. Look, we'll take a break. When we come back, Joe's on the line. Brian's on the line. We've got other lines open if you want to jump in. 737-7587. More with the sheriff and your calls as soon as we come back right after this.